World of Warcraft lore is something that originates from a place of a cartoonish nature mixed with a serious backstory. Stories like this allow for so much freedom and fun with them, because if something is fun, and does not take itself too seriously, who cares if maybe it does not make perfect sense, or has a little hole or inconsistency. This is what Hearthstone does, World of Warcraft spin-off card game, and in this video we'll be discussing why this free approach to lore has stirred up some great ideas that should probably be adopted to the main game. First up, let's take a look at the mean streets of Gadgetzan. This expansion is probably the best example of this, as it turns what was once a small desert town into a noir 1930s New York-style crime land, with large, spiraling streets and 3 gangs vying for control of the city. None of this is even close to being hinted at the original lore, but it makes perfect sense since the city is run by goblins, and goblins are never afraid of doing a little bit of crime to accomplish their goals. Plus, with the city being turned into a port city after the Cataclysm, it makes sense why it could take a shift in this direction, which has already been made canon as they describe Gadgetzan as more similar to its Hearthstone version in the second Traveler novel, The Spiral Path, just without the crime lord parts. And pretty much the entire sentimentality when it was first announced was, man, I wish the Hearthstone version of Gadgetzan was in WoW, from both communities. Let's take a look at an alternate timeline. A timeline much like our own. Arthas approaches the city of Stratholme, and upon seeing its people infected with the plague, soon to turn to undead, demands to his followers that they must purge the city. And while Uther turns him away as normal, this time, Jaina does not. And with this single altercation, the world turns on its head. Jaina joins Arthas along his journey for vengeance, her too becoming corrupted, for the forces that be of Northrend, and together they are a force no one may stand against. And so we get a whole bunch of cool Death Knight versions of the playable heroes for each class, as this one change altered the timeline enough where they almost win, until the player stops the Death Knights in the raid solo adventure. Blizzard did another alt-timeline expansion with Outland. In this timeline, the Legion defeat has left them scattered and crumbling to bits, much like the very world they reside on. That is, till a new leader emerges, Jaraxxus. That is, Mecha Jaraxxus, repairing the broken wounds of his Legion with metal, both in the physical sense and the musical sense. With these, he has formed a new Legion, one as filled to the brim with demons and augmented with mechanical parts, piloting massive fell machinery named the Rusted Legion, an army of flesh and drone. But the Legion is not the only ones replacing their mortal flesh with mechanical enchantments. Like the Mechanomes, many in this war-torn land became prime. Kargath replacing his signature blade hand with, well, the only thing better, a chainsaw hand. Lady Vashir reborn among the champions of the Illidari as a Mecha Naga. And even a campaign where a mage becoming a demon hunter befriends Illidan over their mutual disdain for older siblings who happen to be druids, who are also always so perfect. And these are just a few of the neat stories, like 2 bands of adventurers, 1 horde, 1 alliance searching the Barrens, Wailing Caverns, or Westfall in the Deadmines, to gather Naru fragments for their totally not Black Dragon employers, Lady Prestor and Master Kazakus, only to meet up within the battleground of Alterac Valley, and then siege Onyxias later. Or another example, an exploration of Scholomance as an academy to all magic and not just the more necromantic, where people can even learn to multiclass like many NPCs in WoW lore do, but us players cannot. They've also added original content, like a band of villains called the League of Evil, stealing Dalaran to attack Uldum in order to steal the Plague of Undeath and flee to Dragonblight where a massive war breaks out, so their leader Rafam the Supreme Archaeologist can resurrect Galakron in an attempt to rule Azeroth, all of which would take a whole video to explain that can of worms. But basically, as you can see, Hearthstone just kind of does whatever it wants with its expansion's lores, and we're able to create some incredibly fun stories since they obviously keep a lighthearted tone with everything, one that is sorely lacking from WoW's much more serious tone. They even had 2 Old God expansions, one where it was another what if the Old Gods won scenario, and another where the Darkmoon Fair's Old God undertones become Old God overtones, even giving canonical appearances of 2 of the Old Gods in the process before World of Warcraft did. So, you may be asking at this point, yeah, all this sounds neat, but what does this have to do with WoW's lore? Well, let me tell you that, my dear viewer. What I'm saying is that they should just straight up copy as much of Hearthstone's lore as possible, for side quests and non-major lore events. WoW's core story is always going to be some kind of world-ending threat, and people freaked out when Mists of Pandaria came out because they couldn't take pandas seriously. But WoW players are pretty okay with silly quests being in side quests or inside zones. Just look at how many poop quests there are in the game. There are literally a couple added every single expansion. There are so many neat ideas in Hearthstone just waiting to be adopted, but they can't be easily added because the main story just doesn't go to their locations, and a lot of them take place in the old world. So, if they were to ever have an expansion focusing on the old world, maybe we could see a little more Hearthstone stories being adapted, even if they're just added as Cavern of Time exploits, as a lot of them are alternate timeline ones. Like a remake of ICC, but with all the prior bosses replaced with Death Knight versions of famous heroes, with the final boss being Jaina and Arthas together. But no, seriously, there are so many amazing stories that can be told in universe, and it has such a potential for great moments. And while it's a hard debate in the community what is and is not good stories these days, it's safe to say World of Warcraft does the best when it tells a great story that does not take itself too seriously. A great example is Kel'Thuzad, a character who really is one of the best in Warcraft lore, but sadly overall has had rather lacking screen time, even returning for the Shadowlands expansion, but little used. In Hearthstone, they get the things we love most about him and turn it up to the max. He's energetic, egotistical, and snarky to the highest extent, and for a Lich who has done so much in Warcraft's history, it is amazing to have this almost Saturday morning cartoon, so much so, they even use this version of him for his appearance in Heroes of the Storm, with a set of voice lines that play along to the best Lich in Warcraft.
How dare you poke the Arch-Lich of Naxxramas, Lich Lord of the Plague Lands, Commander of the Dread Necropolis, Master and Founder of the Cult of the Damned, formerly of the Council of Six, Summoner of Archimond the Defiler, the Betrayer of Humanity, Hearthstone enthusiast, and Major Domo to the Lich King himself, Kel'Thuzad freaking Zad! Oh wait, I forgot Creator of the Abomination. Can we take it again from the top? What do you mean, no? Fine. But I'm taking your soul for this.
It is a shame that villains in World of Warcraft constantly need to be dark, brooding, and serious with extreme plans, instead of the Skeletor-type villains we get with Heroes of the Storm, Kel'Thuzad. Overall, it is great to have an emotional and serious story moments, but a nice mix of serious storytelling and cartoony style is a great way to tell a story too. Serious natures and emotions hit far harder when you least expect them, and trying to be serious all the time takes away from this. Alright, and that's the video. We have an unknown side of WoW video on Hearthstone things in WoW coming soon, so check that out. Also, there's a playlist of all the other Hearthstone trailers, including the one seen in this video, in the description if you want to see them all yourself. And lastly, we have a Hearthstone channel that has nothing to do with lore. But if you like the game and the top 10s on this channel, it's basically the same thing but over there. Links to that channel will be at the end of the video right now.